Ambassador Daniel Carter pressed his face against the cold metal of the viewport and watched the alien world grow bigger before his eyes. The planet looked like a giant blue marble with purple clouds swirling around it in patterns he had never seen before. Two bright suns hung in the black space behind the world, casting strange shadows that danced across the surface below. Daniel had been traveling through space for almost 6 months to reach this moment. The journey from Earth to Zephyria Prime took so long because the alien homeworld sat far away from human space, past the edge of what most people called the known galaxy. His ship, the Use Harmony, was not built for war but for peace. It carried no weapons, only gifts and documents meant to show that humanity wanted friendship with the Zephyrian Coalition. Captain Lisa Morgan walked up behind him and looked out at the planet too. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. Lisa had commanded 3 different ships in her career, but this mission was the most important one she had ever accepted. The fate of 12 billion humans back on Earth might depend on what happened in the next few days. "Beautiful world," Lisa said quietly. "Hard to believe they control so much space from here." Daniel nodded and touched the folder in his jacket pocket. Inside were the treaties he hoped to sign with the Zephyrian leaders. The agreements would open trade routes between human and alien space, allow for the exchange of scientific knowledge, and most importantly, guarantee that both species would never fight each other. Earth needed these treaties badly because humanity was still new to galactic politics and had made enemies with some of the older species. The Zephyrian Coalition was different from the other alien governments that humans had met. Instead of being ruled by one species, the coalition included 12 different alien races working together. They controlled hundreds of star systems and thousands of worlds along the outer edge of the galaxy. If humanity could become allies with them, Earth would finally have powerful friends among the stars. Communications Officer Jake Sullivan called out from his station near the back of the bridge. "Ambassador, I'm receiving landing instructions from Zephyrian Traffic Control. They want us to set down in the ceremonial plaza at the center of their capital city." Daniel smiled. A ceremonial plaza meant they planned to make this a public event. The Zephyrian leaders wanted their people to see humanity's first diplomatic mission to their world. This was exactly what Daniel had hoped would happen. Public ceremonies made it harder for either side to break promises later. Dr. Helen Brooks joined them at the viewport. She was the mission's expert on alien biology and culture, and she had spent 3 years studying everything humans knew about the Zephyrian species. Helen was shorter than Lisa, with long red hair and glasses that she constantly pushed up her nose when she got excited. "The plaza can hold over 50,000 Zephyrians," Helen said, reading from her electronic tablet. "If they're planning a public ceremony, it means High Chancellor Vexstar wants to show his people that the coalition is strong enough to make deals with new species." Daniel had been exchanging messages with Chancellor Vexstar for over 2 years through subspace radio. The alien leader seemed genuinely interested in peace and cooperation between their species. Vexstar had even learned some human languages to make their communications easier. This personal touch had impressed Daniel and made him believe that the Zephyrians truly wanted friendship with Earth. The Harmony shook slightly as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Through the viewport, Daniel could see the alien city spread out below them like a forest made of crystal and metal. Towers stretched up toward the sky in spirals and curves that hurt human eyes to look at for too long. Flying vehicles moved between the buildings in organized streams, following traffic patterns that seemed to dance rather than simply transport people from place to place. Admiral Paul Henderson's voice crackled through the communication system from his flagship back in human space. "Harmony, this is Admiral Henderson. Final mission briefing in 10 minutes. Daniel walked to the communication station and picked up the microphone. Admiral Henderson had not wanted Daniel to make this trip with such a small escort. The Admiral believed that humanity should show strength when dealing with aliens, not the peaceful approach that Daniel preferred. "Admiral, we're about to land," Daniel said into the microphone. "Everything looks exactly as planned." "I still don't like this, Ambassador," Henderson replied. One ship with 30 crew members is not enough protection if something goes wrong? The Zephyrians insisted on minimal escort, but that makes me nervous. Admiral, we've been talking with them for 3 years, Daniel said patiently. Chancellor Vextar has been nothing but honest and helpful in all our communications. If we arrive with a fleet of warships, it sends the wrong message about our intentions, Henderson sighed over the radio. Just remember that Earth's military is ready to respond if you need help. We have ships positioned at the edge of Zephyrian space, and they can reach you in less than 8 hours if you send a distress signal. Understood, Admiral. Harmony out. Daniel handed the microphone back to Jake and returned to the viewport. The city below was getting larger and more detailed as they approached the landing zone. He could see the ceremonial plaza now, a huge open area surrounded by the tallest buildings in the city. Thousands of Zephyrians were already gathered there, waiting to see the human visitors arrive. Captain Morgan announced over the ship's internal communication system, "All crew members, prepare for landing. Ambassador Carter, you might want to get ready for the ceremony." Daniel nodded and headed for his quarters to put on his formal diplomatic uniform. The dark blue jacket and pants were covered with small badges and ribbons that showed his rank and experience. On his left shoulder was the patch of the Earth Diplomatic Corps, a blue and green circle representing his home planet. He had worn this uniform to sign treaties with 5 different alien species, but none of those meetings had been as important as this one. When he returned to the bridge, the Harmony was settling down onto a platform in the center of the plaza. Through the viewport, Daniel could see thousands of Zephyrians watching from all sides. The aliens looked like humans in some ways, but their skin was covered with small scales that changed color in the sunlight. Most of them were tall and thin, with large eyes and long fingers that ended in small claws. "Quite a welcome," Lisa said, looking at the crowd. "They seem excited to meet us," Helen added. "Look how they're moving." "Those are celebration patterns, according to my cultural files." Daniel felt his heart beating faster as he prepared to leave the ship. In a few minutes, he would become the first human to set foot on the Zephyrian homeworld. The treaties in his pocket could change the future for both species, opening up new possibilities for trade, science, and friendship among the stars. He had no idea that he was walking into the most carefully planned trap in galactic history. Daniel Carter stepped off the Harmony's ramp and onto alien soil for the first time in his life. The air smelled different here, like flowers mixed with something metallic that made his nose tingle. The 2 suns overhead cast purple shadows across the ceremonial plaza, and the sound of 50,000 Zephyrians cheering filled his ears like thunder. High Chancellor Vextar stood waiting at the bottom of the ramp, surrounded by other important-looking aliens wearing robes covered in bright patterns. The Chancellor was taller than most Zephyrians, with silver scales that sparkled in the sunlight. His large yellow eyes looked kind and welcoming, just like Daniel had hoped they would be. "Ambassador Carter," Vextar said in perfect English, his voice carrying a musical quality that all Zephyrians seemed to have. "Welcome to our world. Your arrival marks a great day for both our species." Daniel smiled and stepped forward to shake the alien leader's hand. Vextar's grip was firm but gentle, and his scales felt warm and smooth like polished stone. "Chancellor, thank you for this incredible welcome. I bring greetings from Earth and hopes for a bright future between our people." The crowd cheered louder as cameras from dozens of different news organizations recorded the historic moment. Daniel could see reporters from at least 6 different alien species mixed in with the Zephyrian journalists. This ceremony was being broadcast across the entire galaxy, showing everyone that humanity was finally being accepted as a serious diplomatic partner. Vextar led Daniel toward a raised platform in the center of the plaza where 2 chairs had been placed side by side. The Chancellor gestured for Daniel to sit in the chair decorated with symbols representing Earth, while he took the seat marked with Zephyrian designs. Between them sat a small table holding the gifts they would exchange as part of the ceremony. "Your journey was long, Ambassador," Vextar said as they walked. 6 months in space to reach us shows great dedication to peace." "Peace is worth any journey, Chancellor," Daniel replied. When I return to Earth, I hope to carry treaties that will benefit both our species for generations to come. Captain Morgan and Dr. Brooks followed behind them, along with 6 other crew members who would witness the signing. The rest of the Harmony's crew remained on the ship, monitoring communications and preparing for the return journey to Earth. Everything was going exactly as planned, just like the dozens of practice sessions they had conducted during the long trip from human space. The ceremony began with traditional Zephyrian music played by a group of musicians, using instruments that looked like crystal tubes and metal flowers. The sounds were unlike anything Daniel had ever heard, beautiful and haunting at the same time. The melody seemed to tell a story about meeting strangers who became friends, which Daniel thought was perfect for this moment. Vextar stood up and addressed the crowd in his own language first, then switched to English so the human visitors could understand. Today we welcome a new species to our circle of friends. The humans have traveled far to offer us their hand in friendship, and we accept that hand with joy and hope. The crowd responded with a complex pattern of sounds that Dr. Brooks had explained was how Zephyrians showed approval and happiness. Daniel stood up and pulled out his prepared speech, but Vextar gestured for him to wait. First we exchange the gifts of greeting, the Chancellor said. Reaching for a box on the table between them, Daniel picked up the sculpture he had brought from Earth, a work of art created by combining metals that could only be found in human space. The sculpture showed 2 hands reaching toward each other across a field of stars, representing the friendship he hoped to build between their species. It had taken human artists 6 months to create, and Daniel was proud to present it as Earth's gift to the Zephyrian people. Vextar received the sculpture with obvious pleasure, turning it over in his hands and examining the craftsmanship with his large eyes. Beautiful, he said. We will display this in our greatest museum so all our people can see the skill of human artists. The Chancellor then presented his gift to Daniel, a crystalline matrix about the size of a book that glowed with soft blue light. This contains the greatest works of Zephyrian poetry and philosophy, Vextar explained. Your scientists will be able to access the information using any standard translation device. Daniel accepted the gift carefully, feeling the crystal's smooth surface warm under his touch. The crowd cheered as cameras recorded the exchange, and Daniel felt a surge of pride knowing that this moment would be remembered in history books on both worlds. For the next 2 hours, everything proceeded perfectly according to diplomatic protocol. Daniel and Vextar gave speeches about cooperation and mutual respect. They signed preliminary agreements allowing for cultural exchanges and scientific cooperation. Representatives from other coalition species came forward to welcome humanity to the galactic community. Daniel began to believe that this mission would be remembered as his greatest achievement. Then High Chancellor Vextar stood up and raised his ceremonial staff, a long rod topped with a crystal that matched his gift to Daniel. The crowd fell silent, waiting for what they clearly expected to be his closing remarks for the ceremony. The human delegation has served its purpose, Vextar announced, his musical voice carrying clearly across the plaza. Daniel felt confused by the odd phrasing, but continued smiling, thinking this was perhaps a translation error or some Zephyrian custom he did not understand. Through 3 years of communications, Vextar continued, we have learned the location of their homeworld, the size of their military forces, and their technological capabilities. After careful analysis, we have determined that the human species poses an unacceptable threat to coalition security. Daniel's smile disappeared as the Chancellor's words sank in. Around the plaza, he could see Zephyrian soldiers emerging from hidden positions behind the crowd. The celebration was ending, but not in the way anyone from Earth had expected. Therefore, Vextar said, looking directly at Daniel with eyes that no longer seemed kind or welcoming, the human delegation will be terminated and their homeworld will be destroyed before they can become a danger to galactic peace. Captain Morgan's voice crackled through Daniel's communication device. Ambassador, we're detecting massive fleet movements in orbit. Unknown ships are surrounding us. This is not a drill. Energy weapons appeared on buildings around the plaza. Ole pointed down at the small group of humans standing on the ceremonial platform. Daniel realized with horrible clarity that the entire diplomatic mission had been nothing more than an elaborate trap designed to gather intelligence about Earth's location and defenses, the last thing Ambassador Daniel Carter saw before the energy beam struck was High Chancellor Vextar's face, no longer pretending to be friendly but showing the cold calculation of a predator who had successfully lured his prey into the perfect position for slaughter. General Alex Parker stood in the war room buried deep inside Cheyenne Mountain, watching the holographic display show the destruction of the UES Harmony in real time. The diplomatic ship had been vaporized in orbit above Zephyr Prime along with Ambassador Carter and his entire crew. 30 good people had died because they believed in peace and friendship among the stars. The general's weathered face showed no emotion as he watched the data streams coming from hidden monitoring stations positioned throughout that sector of space. Earth's intelligence network had been tracking the meeting from a safe distance, ready to provide help if needed. Instead, they had recorded the most brutal betrayal in diplomatic history. President Kate Williams entered the war room with her security team, her face pale but her eyes burning with cold anger. She had personally chosen Daniel Carter for this mission because she believed he was the best chance for peace with the Zephyrian coalition. Now, she was about to make decisions that would turn Earth into something the galaxy had never seen before. How long do we have before their fleet reaches Earth? The president asked, without greeting anyone in the room. Intelligence estimates 6 weeks at their current speed, General Parker replied, pointing to red dots moving across the star map. They're bringing everything they have. Over 3,000 warships from 12 different species. Dr. Eric Stone walked over from his computer terminal carrying a thick folder marked with warnings in several languages. The doctor was a thin man with gray hair who had spent the last 15 years working on projects so secret that most government officials did not know they existed. Today, those projects would finally see the light of day. Madam President, Doctor Stone said quietly, I need your authorization to activate the extermination protocol. President Williams looked around the room at the faces of her top military advisors. Admiral Grace Foster nodded grimly from her position near the communications console. Colonel Nick Barnes, head of psychological warfare, was already reviewing files on his tablet. These people had been preparing for this day since humanity first encountered alien life. The Zephyrians think they understand us because we sent diplomats and scientists to make first contact, the president said, her voice getting harder with each word. They think we're a peaceful species that will beg for mercy when their fleets arrive. General Parker activated the secure communication system that connected to military bases across Earth and throughout the solar system. They studied our diplomatic messages for 3 years, but they never bothered to learn about our real history. Dr. Stone opened his folder and spread photographs across the table. The images showed weapons and ships that looked nothing like the peaceful vessels Earth had been sharing with the galactic community. These machines were built for one purpose only, the complete destruction of enemy civilizations. Authorization code Omega-77 Alpha, President Williams said clearly into the recording device. The extermination protocol is now active. All hidden assets are released for immediate deployment. Across the solar system, automated systems began receiving the activation codes that would transform Earth from an apparently peaceful world into the most dangerous military force the galaxy had ever faced. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt started launching vessels that had been kept secret for over a decade. Weapons manufacturing plants buried on the dark side of the moon began producing ammunition designed to kill specific alien species. Admiral Foster stood up and walked to the main display screen. The Zephyrians made one critical mistake, she said, touching controls that showed Earth's real military strength. They assumed our diplomatic ships represented our actual capabilities. The screen filled with images of warships that dwarfed anything humanity had publicly revealed. The ships were painted black and covered with weapons that combined human engineering with technology stolen from a dozen different alien species. Each vessel had been designed after studying the military weaknesses of every known galactic civilization. How many ships do we actually have? President Williams asked. 800 heavy cruisers, 2,000 destroyers, and 50 dreadnoughts, Admiral Foster replied, plus support vessels and the automated defense platforms we've been secretly placing throughout this sector of space. Colonel Barnes looked up from his tablet with a cold smile. The Psychological Warfare Division has been preparing for this scenario since first contact. We know exactly how to break the morale of every species in the Zephyrian Coalition. Dr. Stone pulled out another set of photographs showing research facilities that officially did not exist. We've developed specific biological weapons for each of the 12 coalition species. We also have nanite swarms that can dissolve their technology and viruses that attack their computer networks. General Parker activated the deployment orders that would send Earth's hidden fleets towards Zephyrian space. The enemy expects us to defend our homeworld and beg the galactic community for help. Instead, we're going to hunt them down and destroy everything they've ever built. President Williams signed the authorization documents that removed all restrictions on Earth's military forces. For 15 years, humanity had followed galactic laws about warfare and weapons development. Now those laws no longer applied to any species that threatened human survival. I want every Zephyrian world turned into radioactive dust, she said quietly. I want their entire civilization erased from galactic history. When we're finished, no other species will ever again make the mistake of betraying humanity's friendship. Admiral Foster began issuing orders to fleet commanders who had been waiting their entire careers for this moment. The first battle group would target Zephyrian military bases and orbital shipyards. The second group would destroy their industrial worlds and mining colonies. The third group would eliminate their civilian populations and make sure no Zephyrian would ever be born again. Colonel Barnes started broadcasting messages designed to terrify the enemy before the shooting even began. Earth's psychological warfare teams had studied Zephyrian culture for years, learning exactly what would cause them the greatest fear and despair. The aliens would know they were going to die long before human ships arrived to kill them. Dr. Stone activated production facilities that would manufacture enough weapons to fight a war lasting several decades if necessary. Earth's industrial capacity had been secretly expanded far beyond what any alien government suspected. Humanity could build warships faster than any other species in the galaxy. The president looked around the room one final time before leaving to address the people of Earth. Ambassador Carter went to Zephyria Prime believing in peace and cooperation. His death will teach the galaxy why human friendship should never be betrayed. General Parker watched the tactical displays as Earth's hidden fleets began moving toward their targets. The Zephyrian Coalition had spent 3 years learning about human diplomatic capabilities. While completely ignoring humanity's talent for warfare, they were about to discover that the species they had dismissed as naive newcomers were actually the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever produced. The hunt was about to begin, and it would not end until every Zephyrian in the universe was dead. Commander Roy West floated in the captain's chair aboard the stealth destroyer USS Phantom, watching his sensors track 3 Zephyrian scout ships moving through Earth's solar system. The alien vessels were exactly where intelligence had predicted. They would be following patrol routes that made them easy targets for the trap he had prepared. The enemy scouts thought they were conducting reconnaissance on a helpless human world, preparing last-minute defenses against the coming invasion. Instead, they had flown into a killing field that Roy and his crew had been perfecting for 2 weeks. Hidden among the asteroids were 50 human warships, all invisible to Zephyrian sensors and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Target lock acquired on all 3 vessels, reported Lieutenant Sam Collins from his weapons station. The young officer had been excited about his first real combat mission until he learned what had happened to Ambassador Carter. Now Sam's face showed the same cold anger that burned in every human heart since news of the betrayal spread across Earth. Roy checked his chronometer and smiled without humor. Fire when ready, Lieutenant. The space around the Zephyrian scouts suddenly filled with energy beams that turned matter into superheated plasma. The alien ships had no time to send distress signals or even understand what was attacking them before they ceased to exist. Their destruction was so complete that not even debris remained to show they had ever been there. "Clean kills on all targets," Sam reported. "No enemy transmissions detected." Roy activated the communication system that connected him to the other ship commanders hiding throughout the asteroid belt. "Phase 1 complete. All units prepare for Phase 2. Light years away from Earth, Fleet Admiral Lynn Carter stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought UES Vengeance, studying tactical displays that showed Zephyrian space spread out before her like a three-dimensional puzzle waiting to be solved. Lynn was Ambassador Daniel Carter's older sister, and she had volunteered to command the first attack wave the moment she learned of her brother's murder. The Admiral's battle group consisted of 200 warships carrying enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. Her orders were simple but brutal: eliminate every Zephyrian military installation, orbital facility, and defensive platform in the outer colonies before moving toward their core worlds. No prisoners would be taken, no mercy would be shown, and no surrender would be accepted. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender signals from the mining colony on Kepler 7, reported Captain Ben Hayes from his position at the communications console. Ben commanded one of the heavy cruisers in Lynn's fleet and had been looking forward to this mission since the moment he learned about the Diplomatic massacre. "Ignore the surrender," Admiral Carter replied without taking her eyes off the tactical display. "Proceed with planetary bombardment as planned." Through the viewports of her flagship, Lynn watched as human warships reduced a Zephyrian mining world to molten rock in less than 30 minutes. The colony had contained over 2 million aliens working in facilities that provided rare metals to Coalition shipyards. Now those shipyards would have to find their materials elsewhere, assuming they survived long enough to need them. Dr. Stone's special weapons performed exactly as designed. Nanite swarms released into the planet's atmosphere dissolved every piece of Zephyrian technology they encountered while leaving the natural environment mostly untouched. The aliens died quickly when their life support systems failed, but their cities crumbled into dust that would blow away in the next storm season. "Next target is the industrial complex at Rigel Station," Admiral Carter announced to her fleet commanders. "Estimated enemy strength is minimal. We'll be in and out in 4 hours." Back in Earth's solar system, the main Zephyrian invasion fleet finally arrived to find empty space where they expected to encounter desperate defensive preparations. High Chancellor Vexstar stood in the command center of his flagship, staring at sensor readings that made no sense to him or his tactical advisors. "Where are the human defensive platforms?" Vexstar asked his intelligence officers. "Our scouts reported extensive military preparations around their homeworld." "Sir, we lost contact with our reconnaissance ships 2 weeks ago," replied Colonel Zethkar, the fleet's chief intelligence analyst. "We assumed they were maintaining communication silence to avoid detection." Vexstar felt the first cold touch of worry in his chest. The human home system should have been buzzing with frantic activity as Earth's government tried to organize defenses against his overwhelming force. Instead, he found empty space and silence that made him think of predators waiting in tall grass. "Begin long-range scans of the inner planets," he ordered. "I want to know where the humans are hiding their fleet." The scans revealed that Earth's orbital infrastructure had been completely evacuated. Space stations hung empty in their orbits while automated systems continued their normal operations. The planet itself showed normal population centers and industrial activity, but there were no military ships visible anywhere in the system. "Sir, incoming priority message from Coalition High Command," announced the communications officer with fear in his voice. The message that appeared on Vexstar's screen made his blood run cold. Human attack fleets had simultaneously struck 17 different Zephyrian worlds across 6 star systems. Military bases had been obliterated, colonies had been sterilized, and entire populations had been exterminated without warning or mercy. The death toll was already in the hundreds of millions and climbing rapidly. "How is this possible?" Vexstar whispered, reading reports of destruction that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The humans only had exploration ships and diplomatic vessels. More messages arrived every few minutes, each one describing the complete annihilation of another Zephyrian world. The human attacks showed a level of military coordination and technological advancement that coalition intelligence had never detected. Every strike was perfectly timed and executed with ruthless efficiency that left no survivors to describe what had happened. Admiral Carter's battle group had moved on to their third target when they encountered the first serious Zephyrian resistance. A coalition defense fleet of 80 ships tried to protect a major shipyard facility, but they were using tactics and weapons designed to fight other alien species. Against human military technology, they lasted less than 20 minutes. Enemy fleet neutralized, reported Captain Hayes. Beginning bombardment of orbital facilities. Lynn watched through her viewport as the shipyard that had built some of the coalition's most advanced warships disappeared in a series of nuclear explosions. The facility had been constructing vessels intended for the invasion of Earth, but now it would never build anything again. Admiral, we're receiving communication requests from fleeing civilian transports, the communications officer reported. Should we respond? Negative, Lynn replied coldly. Our orders are to eliminate all Zephyrian presence in this system. Civilian or military makes no difference. The transport ships carrying Zephyrian families trying to escape the destruction were vaporized along with everything else that carried coalition identification codes. Admiral Carter had lost her brother to Zephyrian treachery, and she intended to make sure no alien would ever again have the chance to betray human trust. High Chancellor Vextar crouched in the emergency bunker beneath his palace, listening to the sound of human warships destroying everything he had spent his life building. The crystalline spires that had once reached towards Zephyria's twin suns were now radioactive rubble scattered across a landscape that glowed with the fires of orbital bombardment. 6 months had passed since the massacre of Ambassador Carter, and in that time the Zephyrian coalition had ceased to exist. 11 of the 12 member species had surrendered unconditionally to human forces, begging for mercy that never came. Entire civilizations that had flourished for thousands of years were now nothing but memories and dust drifting in the cold vacuum of space. General Parker stood in the ruins of the ceremonial plaza where Daniel Carter had died, watching human engineers prepare the final phase of Zephyria Prime's destruction. The same platform where the diplomatic betrayal had taken place would soon be the epicenter of an explosion that would crack the planet's crust and expose its molten core to space. Sir, President Williams is requesting a final status report, said Colonel Barnes, holding a communication device that connected directly to Earth's war room. General Parker took the device and activated the secure channel. Madam President, the extermination protocol is 98% complete. Only Zephyria Prime and 2 outer rim colonies remain to be eliminated. President Williams' voice crackled through the speaker with satisfaction that had been building for months. Excellent work, General. The galaxy is watching and they understand the message we're sending. The message was indeed being received across known space. Dozens of alien species that had initially tried to intervene diplomatically had quickly changed their positions when human fleets appeared in their star systems with simple warnings about the consequences of interference. The galactic community had learned that humanity was willing to fight everyone. If necessary to complete their revenge, Admiral Foster's second battle group had spent 3 months hunting down Zephyrian refugees who had fled to neutral worlds throughout the galaxy. Every ship carrying coalition survivors was tracked down and destroyed regardless of which species offered them sanctuary. The humans made it clear that harboring Zephyrians was equivalent to declaring war on Earth, and no government was willing to face that prospect. Dr. Stone's research teams had perfected weapons specifically designed to cause maximum psychological trauma to Zephyrian survivors. Broadcasting systems planted on their dead worlds transmitted the final moments of their civilization to any aliens who might be listening, ensuring that the galaxy would never forget what happened to species that betrayed human friendship. Fleet Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution as her ships moved into final position around Zephyria Prime, The massive dreadnought had been renamed after her brother's murder, and she had personally overseen the destruction of 47 Zephyrian worlds during the campaign. Today she would finish what the aliens had started when they chose treachery over peace. "All ships report ready for final bombardment," Captain Hayes announced from his position at the tactical station. The fleet surrounding Zephyria Prime consisted of every major human warship still operational after 6 months of continuous warfare. This would be humanity's statement to the galaxy about the price of betraying their trust. Down in his bunker, Vextar activated an emergency transmitter and sent one final message to the few Zephyrian survivors scattered across distant worlds. His voice was broken with despair as he spoke words that would be remembered as the last official communication from his dead civilization. "To all Zephyrians still alive in the galaxy, I am High Chancellor Vextar speaking from our dying homeworld," he said into the recording device. "I led our people into this catastrophe because I believed humans were weak and easily destroyed. I was wrong about everything." The former Chancellor paused as another series of explosions shook the bunker around him. Human bombs were systematically destroying the planet's infrastructure, while their ships prepared for the final blow that would end Zephyria as a world capable of supporting life. "The humans are not the peaceful species we thought they were," Vextar continued. "Behind their diplomats and scientists lies a military machine more terrible than anything the galaxy has ever seen. They fight with a fury that makes them unstoppable and a determination that accepts no compromise." Admiral Carter gave the final order that would complete humanity's revenge. "All ships, commence planetary bombardment. Primary targets are the continental fault lines and tectonic stress points." The bombardment that followed was not designed to simply kill the remaining population of Zephyria Prime. Human weapons struck at the planet's geological weak points with precisely calculated force, triggering earthquakes and volcanic eruptions that would make the world uninhabitable for millions of years. Vextar felt the bunker collapsing around him as his planet began tearing itself apart under the sustained assault. "If any of our people survive," he said into his transmitter with his final breath, "remember this lesson. Never again provoke the humans. Never again mistake their desire for peace as inability to wage total war." Commander West transmitted humanity's closing message to the galaxy from his position in Earth's solar system, where the abandoned Zephyrian invasion fleet still hung in space like monuments to alien stupidity. The ships had been captured intact when their crews realized the hopelessness of their situation and surrendered without firing a shot. "This is Commander West of the Earth Defense Force speaking to all species in galactic space," he said into the transmitter that would carry his words to every inhabited world in known space. "The Zephyrian coalition no longer exists because they chose to murder our diplomat when he came in peace." The message continued as Zephyria Prime's sun was artificially destabilized using technology that human scientists had developed specifically for this moment. The star began collapsing in on itself, creating a black hole that would eventually consume every planet in the system and leave nothing but empty space where a civilization had once flourished. "Humanity extends friendship to all species willing to treat us with honesty and respect," West's message concluded. "But those who mistake our peaceful intentions for weakness will learn the same lesson as the Zephyrians. We can be your greatest allies or your final enemy. The choice is always yours to make." In the months that followed, 43 different alien governments requested immediate diplomatic relations with Earth. Representatives from species that had never shown interest in human affairs suddenly appeared at Earth's orbital stations with offers of trade agreements, military alliances, and cultural exchanges. The galaxy had learned what every species eventually discovered about humanity. Behind their smiling diplomats and peaceful explorers lived the descendants of a world where survival had always depended on being more dangerous than anything trying to kill them. The Zephyrians had awakened that ancient fury and paid the ultimate price for their mistake. Ambassador Daniel Carter's death had been avenged, and his sacrifice had achieved something his peaceful mission never could have accomplished. No alien species would ever again doubt humanity's place among the stars. or make the fatal error of confusing human civilization with human weakness.